Hi, everyone. I'm Ravi Kapoor. We're back here covering the Democratic National Convention. We want to introduce you to a couple of delegates representing the Democratic Party this cycle, and it's Devang and Bianca Shah, who are father and daughter at different stages in their life. Devang obviously has a daughter off to college, but somehow they're both delegates for the Democratic National Party, and of course, everything is virtual this year. So I'm very curious about this story. They've always been very active in Democratic politics for a number of years. But now you're both delegates for this party, and we have the first South Asian ever to be on a presidential ticket in Kamala Harris. So first of all, thanks for being here. What drew you to do this experience together, to both be delegates?
Well, Ravi, I guess let me go first there. Once, since you called me, I guess experience and old in different aspects of our life. Well, we were both delegates for selected in different ways. So I was selected by the Biden campaign to run for a seat. So I went through an election for my congressional district, and I was a Biden supporter from back when it wasn't popular to be a Biden supporter. Really got in on the ground floor last summer and ran in our 6th congressional district here in Maryland and was elected to be a Biden delegate. And Bianca was chosen after the election to be a at-large delegate by the Biden campaign.
Bianca, what has this experience been like for you? I mean, at 20 years old, you're a delegate for the Democrats. Take us through what this process has been like.
Yeah, definitely. It's been a little overwhelming, but overall just really exciting because everything is completely new. I mean, this is the first presidential election I'll be voting in, let alone I'll be voting as a delegate in. So obviously the fact that it's virtual adds a whole new component, but I think other people who have experienced that convention in real life have more things to be disappointed about, whereas I'm going into this being like, I can't wait to attend every single event possible because I can't wait to learn as much as possible from all these amazing role models from Maryland all around the country who I looked up to for years as I've been involved in local politics, and now I'm on calls with them and speaking to them in breakout rooms and leading events where they're participating. So it's been an amazing experience overall.
What is the process like being a delegate this year? Because obviously everything is virtual. Have you been involved in meetings nonstop so far? Take us behind the scenes a little bit.
So most of the events have been with the Maryland State Democratic Party. Our state chair, Yvette Lewis, has done a wonderful job trying to mimic as much as we can the events of the Democratic National Committee as if we had gone to Milwaukee. So we started last Thursday with speed networking. We had a happy hour this past Sunday night, which was virtual with the DC and Virginia delegations. We've had a talent night. We have morning breakfast with elected officials and the rest of the delegation. It's been pretty much nonstop, Ravi. We're kind of getting tired as if we're at the convention because we're doing watch parties together. So yesterday during the convention, all of us were on a watch party together, chatting with one another. And after the watch party ended, we had the 2 congressmen do a debrief, so to speak, and talk about what we just saw and their impressions of the first night of the convention. So it's been a pretty good experience so far. And we're kind of trying to mimic what we can as much as we can in this new virtual environment.
Bianca, I know you're involved in youth outreach, so talk about how you are trying to get the message across to folks in your age bracket to turn out the vote for the Biden-Harris ticket.
Yeah, like you said, I'm in charge of youth outreach for South Asians for Biden. And one thing that I think is going to be one of the most important aspects is ensuring that voter registration. Obviously, that's big for all of us right now, especially with recent actions regarding USPS, but especially mail-in ballots for students who attend schools in swing states is going to be very important. So the fact that there's different policies in each of these states is something I'm focusing on. So something I'm potentially looking into is having these youth state directors for South Asians for Biden who are going to make these infographics that look good and can go on Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, and will tell you exactly how you register to vote, how you request an absentee ballot, and then when you have to turn in that absentee ballot for, as well as providing that information as to why it's useful if you're a Democrat to submit those ballots on the earlier end because of all the issues with USPS.
That's a great point because you're originally from Maryland, but here you will continue to attend college in Michigan. And you're physically going there, which, again, there's a lot of universities that are saying we do everything virtual moving forward. So are you registered to vote in Michigan? Are you considered one of those swing voters that both parties need to appeal to?
So I will be. I'm currently registered in Maryland, so I was able to vote for my dad for delegate, and I'm able to be a delegate for Maryland, but I will be switching for the general election to Michigan. So I actually just was putting together an infographic today about Michigan, about all the different rules and providing links, because I was getting a lot of questions from different friends of mine asking me, like, we don't understand this process. There's 3 different things you have to request. You have to request the form to switch your registration, you have to request the absentee ballot, and you have to actually send in the ballot. So that's a lot of steps that I'm hoping to just break down for the general public instead of 7 different links.
Dave Vaughn, since I know you're also involved with the Maryland Democratic Party, involved with AAPI outreach, tell us about that state and where it stands in getting the vote out for the Biden-Harris ticket. I mean, is there anything unusual that you're facing because of the pandemic? Are you able to still access voters in the same way? Because I know typically people are making phone calls and maybe knocking on doors. What, if anything, has changed in this election cycle?
Well, of course, what's changed is the one-to-one contact when you want to go out and do canvassing. Events are now all virtual through Zoom or some other medium. They're not going to be in person. But that's also created some opportunities for us because now we can reach beyond our local area. So what we've done under our party chair, Yvette Lewis, once again, is we have formed a consortium for Asian Americans with North Carolina, Virginia, and Pennsylvania. So if we look at those 4 states, Virginia and Maryland are safe Biden states. So when we mobilize Asian Americans in those 2 states, we want to mobilize them to export into into North Carolina and Pennsylvania. So we've formed a Mid-Atlantic API consortium whereby we are phone banking into those 2 states, and we're going to be text banking into those states. We're creating in-language translations into those states, and we've had meetings already with the state party chairs, not just the API chairs, but the state party chairs for both Pennsylvania and North Carolina, where they welcome our help into those states. And if we look at those states, the margin of victory in 2016 was so little. And if we had Asian Americans vote at the same level as the general population, Hillary Clinton today would be president. But the problem with Asian Americans is we did not vote. And part of it is cyclical because generally elected officials or those running for office are reaching out to those that have voted in the past. They look for 2 election cycles. Has Ravi, for example, voted in the last 2 election cycles? Let's reach out to him. And Asian Americans are often left out of that because they've never been reached out to, number 1, or number 2, they're new Americans. So by us Asian Americans reaching out, micro-targeting those communities with Vietnamese calling Vietnamese, Indian Americans calling Indian Americans, we believe we can raise that number, especially with Kamala Harris on the ticket, where we could be the margin of victory in both Pennsylvania and North Carolina.
Let's talk about that for a moment. Bianca, how meaningful is it for you to see Senator Harris on the ticket, being the first Asian American, the first South Asian, the first Indian American to ever be in this type of position?
Yeah, I mean, it was beyond inspirational. To add on to that, not just Indian American, but to see an Indian American woman on the ticket for the first time ever, a woman of color, and to have it be someone that has that similar background and culture is something where I know how important role models are and have been for me in my path in politics since I was about 15. And so seeing her now as someone that I can look up to and all the amazing things that she's going to do, I know that there's going to be younger people and younger Indian Americans who are going to look at her and say, I can do that as well. I'm going to get involved with politics, even if that's not particularly a path I saw that my parents would particularly support of or whatever it is. But I think that she's going to be a true role model for myself and a lot of younger individuals.
So do you think you're going to pursue this path yourself? One day we'll have you represent the Senate in Maryland or Michigan or beyond?
I think we'll see, but I think it's a possibility. I think that I would love to give back because I've seen these elected officials do so much and I've worked for them and seen how impactful they are in the communities that I grew up in. And so I think we'll see, but definitely a possibility.
Well, that's good to hear. We will definitely save this interview for the future. That's what we try to do, is catalog who's coming up and who's making an impact. My final question to you both, take us through your expectations of this campaign. Obviously, President Trump has made a huge overture to Indian Americans in particular over the last 4 years, and the Democratic Party now has a candidate certainly that would be appealing to many Indian Americans and South Asians. But there is this real clash to get voters. Do you feel as if Senator Harris is going to put the Biden ticket over the hump, or are you feeling that the Trump's efforts over the last 4 years have been significant, and there's going to be still a huge give and take to make sure the community supports the folks that you support?
Ravi, there's a large percentage of Indian Americans that do support Biden, and they supported Biden before Kamala Harris was named on the ticket. I think we just bumped that even higher with Kamala Harris. And what it really shows is respect for the community, and our community has arrived when we see one of us as a vice president of the United States. It's, I think, very akin to when African Americans had Barack Obama become the presidential nominee for the Democratic Party. Now, I do understand there's a small percentage of Indian Americans that are Republicans. You're not going to convince everybody, but the issues in this campaign, or what we need, why we need to elect Joe Biden, transcends that one issue that the Republican Hindu nationalists are even thinking about or talking about, Ravi. And what we're talking about is, what is the future of our country going to look like? President Trump's presidency, his running for office, is all predicated upon xenophobia and anti-immigrant sentiment, where he doesn't believe we belong in this country. And that's what people have to realize, that what's best for us in the United States, what's best for your kids and your grandkids.
Bianca, well, why don't you close us out with your thoughts on this effort? I mean, are you seeing folks in your age bracket fully on board to the Biden-Harris ticket, or has President Trump made an overture to younger voters to try to get them to vote for him?
I don't think that President Trump has made that into, especially the South Asian youth. I think the bigger issue for South Asian youth is getting them to be actively involved in pushing for the Biden-Harris ticket, or ensure that not only they vote, but getting their parents and their grandparents to vote. So like my dad mentioned, that older generation of people who are planning on supporting Trump, even with Harris on the ticket, I think that it's so important to emphasize from the youth perspective, saying, you, like my parents, my grandparents, you all came to this country to give us this opportunity, this hope, these dreams. And in order for us to fulfill those dreams of yours, we need a president that's able to support us through their policies, practices, and decisions. And that president cannot be Trump. It has to be Biden.
Dave Ung and Bianca Shaw, we really appreciate your time. Thank you so much. They're both delegates here at the DNC, and we will see. It's going to be a very competitive race, and we, again, appreciate your thoughts, and we will follow this story, especially you, Bianca. When you run for office, we definitely want that first interview.
Of course, you got it.